Okay. Hari Om everybody. My name is Manikandan and I'm going to be the MC for today. A very warm welcome to each and everyone who are present here. We shall begin today's program with Deepo Jwalanam, which is lighting the lamp. I'm pleased to invite Swami Sarvapriyananda ji, Swami Satyalokananda ji, Sri S. Ishwaran ji, Sri Jayachandran ji, Sri Srinivasan ji, Sri Rajshekhar ji, and the committee members of Gita Jayanti, Singapore, to join us on stage. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Swamiji. We will now have a small video presentation about Gita Jayanti. Good evening, everybody, again. As it's important for us to start any event with an invocation song, may I invite Ms. Lavanya Balachandran to render the invocation songs.
Agajanana Padmargam Gajananam Maharnisham Anekadantam Bhaktanam Ekadantam Upasmahe Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambam Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me sada Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kam Sachanura Mardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangullanghayate Girim यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं 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 माधवम्.
Thank you, Ms. Lavanya Balachandran, for very soulful rendition. Next, may I call upon G. Srinivasan Ji, Chairman of Gita Jayanti, Singapore, to render the welcome address.
My pleasure on behalf of Gita Jayanti, Singapore, to welcome Sri Ishwaranji, Minister for Transport and Minister in charge of trade relationship for Republic of Singapore, Swami Sarvapriyananda from Vedanta Society of New York, Swami Satyalokananda from Ramakrishna Mission, Singapore, and all other distinguished guests, and the Parivar, Gita Parivar of each one of you, a warm welcome to you today. This is the fourth installment of the four-part International Gita Forum being held over 4 days, with fourth being in between allocated for Moksha Tithi Parayan. All these fours are nothing but the force of Krishna that is making all this happen so smoothly. So our prayers to Lord Krishna for a smooth conduct of all the events that are going to happen now. Gita Jayanti has turned 25 this year. And it's maybe a moment of relishing joy and everything, but looking at further, we see there are a lot of tasks facing us, especially getting the Gita message across to the younger generations and to the people who are yet to come in knowledge of Gita. So Gita Jayanti is looking for that, and so many things can be done, and we look forward to your ideas in this regard. And what we can do, Gita, is that generally our goal life is self-realization. And what the Vedanta or the Upanishads, everybody prescribes, is Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, or even as sometimes referred as Pandityam, Balavam, and Maunam in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and further expounded in Brahma Sutra, chapter 3, section 4 also, very extensively. But what does it mean? Instead of giving that kind of things, I would roughly translate, borrowing somebody's, the heard things I heard, it's not mine. It's information, confirmation, and transformation. Information is what we hear, and confirmation is what we get our doubts clarified and become steady in our knowledge, and then transformation, bringing it to inside and reaching the goal of self-realization. How that is possible? It's possible, and Gita Jayanti is doing the first two parts, that is of the making the information available through all the talks in the Gita forum, and also for confirmation where you can ask questions and get your doubts clarified so that the information you received becomes a confirmation of that. The third part, of course, is yours. I would say that an example I would think of it is that it is like where a lot of young parents here and grandparents would have gone through this. When you want to feed a small baby, it's a big toil. You can cajole, you can cry, you can spat, you can sing. Nowadays, you can even put a show on the video or iPhone, everything. Even sometimes force open the mouth and put the food inside. All this can be done by everybody else, but the swallowing has to be done by the baby. Nobody else can help it there. So that's where your effort comes in transforming the information you have received into self-realization. Brings me, when talk of the food, another thing is that Pujya Swami Onkarananda Ji very often brings out in this quote of his guru, Swami Chidbhavananda. Permit me to say it in Tamil first, then I'll try to give a rough translation in English. உணவு உடல் மயமாவது போல கருத்துக்கள் உணர்வு மயமாகட்டும், which means that like the food after digestion becomes part of the body, let all the good thoughts after being mulled over in the mind become part of your consciousness. That is what he says. So we can do all that, and further transforming that, we can say that how to go about it will be that we have to contemplate on that and continuously go on and meditating upon this. And you can see this is that even for this small event, this auspicious gathering of the audience today and the IGF, and even the Moksha Siddhi Parayan tomorrow, where almost 500, more than 500 chanters have already confirmed their participation. Hopefully they will turn up. And all these plannings have started over since early 2021. So that being the case, that if we want to realize our knowledge, think of the efforts you have to put in. And it is not an effort that you put in for a limited duration and the event is over and gone. It is a lifelong effort. So please do not listen to the lectures, get it into your mind, not just clap and go away, but keep immersing yourself in Gita. And Gita is one unique text which acts as a Dharma Shastra as well as a Moksha Shastra. Others are not like Upanishad or anything. So what is Dharma Shastra means? It gives you the how to conduct the life and how to be satisfied in your conduct of the life and face the problems, all those things that are there. And as a Moksha Shastra, of course, you all understand, it tells you how to reach your self-knowledge and self-realization. So that is a unique text of the Gita, unique nature of the Gita. So please do be immersed in Gita all the while until you get to know yourself. And even thereafter, you have to do that. Like our Swamijis and all, they are doing it, exploring it for our benefit. And before I conclude, I would like to mention this also, that we immensely thank our Minister Ishwaran Ji for taking time off. This is not any Upachara Vakya or words of formality. It is sincere expression, because he has got so much of other things to do that he has allocated some time for this and will be with us for a while, as long as is possible to stay on. So we thank him for his kind acceptance of our invitations. And of course, without saying this, the welcome address is not complete. We immensely thank Swami Sarvapriyananda Ji for flying all the way from New York to deliver his lecture in person. Thank you, Swamiji, and thank you, Minister, and thank you all. Once again, a very warm welcome to you, and please enjoy the talks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Srinivasan Ji, for this wonderful welcome address. Well, every time when I listen to you, I get goosebumps, because you don't have any scripts, but you kind of talk through. Okay, one thing I noted is also what you said about Gita. I myself, as a Gita student, I have my guru sitting there. And you're absolutely right. What is important is Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Yeah, thank you for that. And may I invite upon Sri Ishwaran Ji, the Minister of Transport and Minister in charge of Trade and Relations, Singapore, to render his keynote address. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
I shall spare you the goosebumps. I do have a script. Yeah. Respected Swami Sarvapriyananda, Swami Satyalokananda, and fellow Hindus and members of the Hindu Endowments Board, Hindu Advisory Board, the Gita Jayanti Committee, ladies and gentlemen, very good evening, and first and foremost, let me thank all of you, and in particular the organizing committee, for inviting me to join all of you at this very special event. I'm very honored to be here with all of you at the International Gita Forum, especially because we are marking its Silver Jubilee, the 25th anniversary of Gita Jayanti this year. The celebrations, as we know, had a humble beginning. I've had the pleasure of participating in some of the events over the years, starting in 1997 as a one-day observance ceremony with the chanting of the Bhagavad Gita. Since then, Gita Jayanti Singapore has brought around 25 organizations into the fold in support of its mission. And the celebrations have expanded, as we have seen and heard, to include essays and art competitions, cultural events, and international seminars like this one today. By appealing to diverse audiences, these initiatives have been crucial to the Hindu community in Singapore. We live in a multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multilingual society, and it's particularly important that we continue to keep our Hindu traditions alive and relevant, especially for a younger generation who are the custodians of the future of our scriptures. In particular, the Gita Forum has served as an important anchor of the Gita Jayanti celebrations. Over the years, it has successfully hosted numerous experts on the Gita, from eminent Swamijis to academics and practitioners, who have imparted fresh and refreshing insights on the spiritual text. As such, I think this forum has nurtured a devoted community that actively engages with the Gita as an evergreen, living scripture, which indeed it is in all our lives. I'm very happy, therefore, to also welcome Swamiji for his visit to Singapore, which I hope will be a fruitful and memorable one. During the COVID-19 pandemic, I know that Swamiji's online talks provided much wisdom, solace, and connection to listeners all over the world. And as we emerge from the pandemic's shadow and resume in-person activities, it is our privilege to benefit from his presence and insightful sharing here in person today. I also want to note that besides the Vedanta talks to those invited by Gita Jayanti, Swamiji is delivering 2 special talks in Singapore. One for our youth and the other for interfaith leaders. And I think these are significant in their own ways. One, because it encourages an intergenerational appreciation of our scriptures. And the second, because it deepens the interfaith understanding that is fundamental to Singapore's multi-religious society. And with the infinite wisdom of the Gita about attaining joy, peace, and enlightenment in our everyday lives, it is my sincere hope that its sacred teachings will continue to live on through members of the community here today and for the generations to come. I commend the Gita Jayanti Committee and all the partners for your steadfast efforts over the years. And as we cross this historic milestone, I also look forward to your continued contributions to the Hindu community and beyond in your next chapter. You could say that the COVID-19 pandemic was a period of personal awakening and also spiritual awakening for all of us. And as our scriptures say, Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma, Jyotirgamaya, Mrityoma, Amritam Gamaya. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. I wish all of you an enriching spiritual evening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for this keynote address. You were absolutely right. This COVID-19 is a period of awakening for all of us. That's exactly where I started my Gita lessons, because usually during our office time, we wouldn't have the time, but this is the time wherein we could find time to learn better things in life to make us better. Thank you, sir. Now I request Swami Sarvapriyananda ji to come on stage. Minister Ishwaran ji will now garland Swamiji. Thank you, Minister Ishwaran ji. Due to prayer commitments, Minister Ishwaran will not be... Yes. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Okay, may I request Swamiji to will speak on the topic of, yeah. All right. Swami Sarvapriyananda will speak on the topic Enlightening of Life based on Chapter 2 Sankhya Yoga of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Over to you, Swamiji.
Om Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityurma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness unto light, lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Privyat Swami Satyalokananji Maharaj, Honorable Minister Ishwaranji, we members, organizers, members of the Hindu Endowments Board, the Hindu Advisory Board, and the Gita Jayanti, Srinivasanji from the International Gita Forum, friends, citizens of Singapore, and I gather there are some people who have traveled from neighboring places also to be here this evening. Thank you so much for organizing these events and inviting me to your beautiful country and to this beautiful hall. It's great to be here this evening with all of you. Ishwaranji was just mentioning the effect of the pandemic, the COVID pandemic on all of us. And I remember when it started, I was in Boston at that time, and then there was a fellowship at the Harvard University. And then Harvard was one of the first to recognize what was happening, and they shut down immediately. And that's where I learned new terms like social distancing. There was supposed to be an event, so we are organizing a big event for you. There'll be 250 people, that's a big event for Boston. And then when I actually went to the event, there were 25 people, so it was cut down to 1/10. And he said, what is this? This is called social distancing, new term. And I thought, well, I should go back to New York to my ashram at that time, and because Harvard was thinking of moving online. I learned a new term also, Zoom. And I went back to New York thinking it'll be better there. Little did I know. It was the worst in the world in the first wave in New York. At that time, about 1,000 people were dying per day in New York itself. And when I spoke about Vedanta, somebody in exasperation said, at this time, do we have to talk about philosophy and metaphysics? Is this the time? And I said, this is the time. This is the time. Philosophy and metaphysics and Gita are not just for leisure activities. You see, the idea is, when everything is fine, I've got some time left over for listening to nice lectures, that's great. But when I'm under pressure, when there's a crisis, I don't have time for philosophy. That is the time. Vedanta is meant to take us beyond suffering. Swami Vivekananda said, I do not care for a religion which does not infuse strength in our hearts, strength to face crisis. So Bhagavad Gita, remember, it was preached, it was taught in the battlefield. It's not taught in an ashram, not even taught in a temple like this where we're sitting, in the midst of the struggles of life. So it gives us strength to face the struggles of life. Vivekananda further said, to me, strength is the essence of religion, is the heart of religion. I remember many years ago, in fact, nearly a couple of decades ago, I saw this young monk in our monastery who was sitting a little depressed, looking a little sad. I said, why are you unhappy? What do you want? And he said to me, I want peace. Not an unusual thing for a monk to say. After all, why would you become a monk? You probably want peace. And then I thought of Vivekananda. And I somehow felt inspired to say to that young monk that don't look for peace. Don't search for peace. Search for strength. Physical, emotional, mental, intellectual, moral, spiritual strength. From strength comes peace. Gita teaches us that philosophy, which is enormously practical, which we can put into use in our days, in our lives, right here, right now. So the subject that I have chosen for this evening, I'll speak about that for maybe 45 to 50 minutes, and I understand we are going to have Q&A after that. There will be a live Q&A after that, so we'll organize it after that. So listen carefully, because I was just thinking, what I've planned to do this evening is go off on the deep end. You know, swimming pool, there's the shallow end and the deep end. And you're not advised generally to jump into the deep end unless you know swimming, but I'm going to throw us all into the deep end. Some of you, many of you, you have all studied the Gita, you have heard the YouTube talks, not just mine, Vedanta talks. So we all sort of know what the subject is this evening. Some of you might say, not me, I don't know. I've come here for the first time. A senior Swami used to tell us, when you give a talk, there should be something for everyone, and then everything for some people, like, you know, specialize. This is going to be one of those advanced talks. It's in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna, having concluded the teachings of Vedanta, that you are the Atman, you're not the body, you're not the mind, you are awareness, your existence, consciousness, bliss. He taught about how to actualize that, how to realize that, karma yoga. Then Arjuna asks a question. As a question, all of us, after we study Vedanta for a while, we all ask this question. I get it, Swamiji, but how am I going to make it practical? I understand it in the class, but after I leave the class, it sort of fades out. Or I feel really good when I study this, when I think about this, when I meditate, contemplate this. But when I go out into life, into the house, into a family, into my job, it's very difficult. The Americans have a phrase, when the rubber hits the road, that is the car wheel, you know. They also have a phrase, walk the talk. Walk the talk. So how do we walk the talk? What is it like? Suppose these things we are studying, suppose we understand them, if we can actually manifest them in life, what would our life be like? How do we manifest it in life? How can I translate my understanding, the information, into the wisdom, into the lived wisdom in life? So that is the question that Arjuna asks Krishna, and that is what we will consider here. What I'm going to do now is, it will be packed. What I'm going to say is going to be packed, so just try to hang on, and then of course you can ask questions, we'll recapitulate. I'll make it easy for all of us. What I'm going to do now in the next few minutes, I'm going to give it to us, all of us, in a capsule form. So again, the Americans call it a takeaway. From the whole talk, what's your takeaway? Here's the takeaway at the very beginning, and we'll come back to it at the end also. The takeaway is, at the level of our real nature, pure consciousness, oneness, ekatvam. At the level of the mind, our thoughts, evenness, samatvam. I don't like the word sameness, but evenness, samatvam. At the level of our actions, in Sanskrit, vyavahara, at the level of our actions, day-to-day actions, asangatvam, a detachment, asangatvam. And all of it powered by, given a foundation by, given a preparation by, control of the senses, indriya nigraha in Sanskrit. All right, to repeat, what's going to be the takeaway from today's, this evening's deliberations? In our real nature, who am I? In bodha, in consciousness, oneness. We are one non-dual reality. That's one. Ekatvam. Sanskrit, if you want those who like Sanskrit, one word, powerful language. In one word, you can express so much. Ekatvam, oneness. Level of mind, samatvam, evenness. The level of our actions, our interactions with the world and people, asangatvam, detachment. And all of it, the basis, important practice, indriya nigraha, control of our senses. And all of these Those who have been studying the Bhagavad Gita, you know, in some way I'm summarizing the Sthita Pragya Lakshana, what Sri Krishna talks about. When he answers Arjuna's question, each verse I have summarized in one word. And so that's the sort of, those who have been studying Gita a lot, you can say, okay, Swami, I got you, I'm leaving now. Everything is in these words. Ekatvam, Samatvam, Asangatvam, Indriya Nigraha. 4 verses of the Bhagavad Gita, and in 4 words for them. All right, let's plunge into it. After the teachings of Vedanta, Arjuna asks Sri Krishna, what is it like to be enlightened? I get it, what you are teaching me. But suppose I actually realize it. Suppose I actually experience this. What is it like to be enlightened? And what is it like, how does this enlightened person interact with the world? We remember the famous questions of Arjuna. Sthita pragyasya ka bhasha, samadhisthasya keshava, sthitadhi kim prabhasheta, kimasita vrajeta kim. O Krishna, the word he uses for the fully enlightened person, sthita pragya, is literally the word, the question which we all keep asking. Sthita pragya, enlightenment, wisdom, realization. Sthita, stabilized, steady, not flickering, not in class but gone outside class. Not in meditation with eyes closed, but gone when eyes open. Sri Ramakrishna would say often that God is there with eyes closed, not there with eyes open. What kind of God is that? As with eyes closed, eyes open, it must be stable. This learning must be stable. The one with the stabilized enlightenment. Sthita pragya. Beautiful word. And you notice, this question which we almost all of us have when we study Vedanta is exactly about this word, Sthita Pragya. How do I get to that? I sort of get it, I understand it, feels great, but then I lose it. Or when I go out into the world, it's not steady. How do I live it? You might say that, Swami, that was not Arjuna's question. Arjuna's question was, what is the enlightened person like? Not how do I become enlightened? That was not his question. What is the enlightened person like in Samadhi? What is the enlightened person? What does he speak? What does he or she, how does that person withdraw from the world and meditate? How does that person interact with people and things in the world? That was the question. But no. If you go to Shankaracharya's commentary on this question of Arjuna, he says it's meant not for the enlightened person, it's meant for us. He says, everywhere in all spiritual scriptures, in all spiritual teachings, the characteristics of the enlightened person are taught as practices for the rest of us. Sarvatra eva hi adhyatma shastre, everywhere in all spiritual texts. Kritarthasya lakshanani yani, whatever are the characteristics of the perfected one. Tani sadhanan, tanyeva sadhanani upadishyante. Those are taught as practices. Yatna sadhyatvat. Because with effort, if you practice that, you get to that sthita pragya. What you have learned in Vedanta becomes assimilated, part of you. That beautiful quote in Tamil, which you quoted from Omkaranandaji, I think, that these wonderful truths are absorbed into our being. Swami Vivekananda used to use a word, assimilation. So the teachings are assimilated and they become part of us. We become embodiments of those teachings. So how do you do that? Sri Krishna's first answer. So we will go step by step. I'm keeping an eye on the time. One of the toughest talk I ever had to give was something called a TED Talk. You've heard of these TED Talks? I'm never going to sign up for those again. They said, whatever you say, you have to finish in 18 minutes. And there are these big clocks in front. And the audience can't see them, but if you're speaking, you can see them. And one of them is running up from 0000 to 18 in hundredths of a second, like 100-meter sprint. Another one is running down from 18 in hundredths of a second to 0. And you have to look at that. I don't know how you to give the talk. It's so disturbing. But it taught me the importance of time. And I managed to finish at 17 minutes 43 seconds. I knew if I started one more sentence, I could not finish before 18 minutes. Sri Krishna said, the famous answer, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmanyevatmana tushta sthita prajnasta duchyate. One becomes fully enlightened, stabilized wisdom, when, first, he says, I will give a mantra from the Upanishad, Mandukya Upanishad. It is a sublime mantra which describes what is it exactly to be enlightened. Shankaracharya, in his commentary to these verses, he says, Prajna, enlightenment. What do you mean by enlightenment? Please define it precisely. He says, Aham, Param Brahma Aham Asmi iti Prajna. I am that transcendent Brahman. That is wisdom. That is enlightenment. I am pure being, pure consciousness, pure fulfillment or pure bliss, Satchidananda. That is what I really am. Not just this limited being of body and mind and flesh and blood. I am a spirit. I am spirit itself, divinity itself. That is wisdom. And how does that become stabilized? What is this stabilized enlightenment? So a mantra from the Upanishad, Mundaka Upanishad, I think one of the best descriptions of what exactly constitutes enlightenment. Vidyate hridaya granthi chidyante sarva samshaya kshiyante chasya karmani tasmin drishte paravare. So when you see the transcendent and immanent Brahman, the ultimate reality, when you realize that, what happens? Three things happen. Vidyate hridaya granthi. The knots of the heart are cut asunder. Hridaya granthi, knot. It's cut asunder. Chidyante sarva samshaya. All our doubts are gone forever. There's no doubt anymore. It's like seeing the sun, looking at the sun, it's blazing forth. Don't look at the sun directly, but what I mean is, it's as clear as that. And kshiyante chasya karmani. So this whole idea of being trapped in a cycle of karma, being forced from one lifetime to another, which is something that we share across Hinduism and all, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism. So you are freed of the fetters of karma. You are no longer trapped into cause and effect. Kshiyante chasya karmani. These are the three effects. Freedom from all doubts, freedom from karma, which means if you're free from karma, you're free from the cycle of birth and death. Janma mrityu. That is how classically Hindus understood freedom, moksha. But the first one is very interesting. Knots of the heart are cut. Sounds like a heart problem, something for cardiologists. What is this cutting of the knots of the heart? Traditionally in Advaita Vedanta, those who have been studying, you will immediately interpret it as ignorance. We do not know who or what we are, and that's what ties us to this body-mind. That is the knot of ignorance. I am pure consciousness, but I think that I am this person. The moment you ask, who are you? Point to yourself. Here. What is this? I. This I am this, and this is I. This is the knot, according to Advaita Vedanta. One sadhu put it nicely. What is the relationship between you, the consciousness, and this body-mind? What is the relationship? Because Vedanta tells us, I'm pure consciousness. Shankaracharya sings, Chidananda Rupa Shivoham. I am of the nature of consciousness, bliss. I am Shiva, I am Shiva. But then, if I am that, then why do I feel like this? So what is the relationship between my real nature, which Vedanta teaches me, and what seems obvious to me, that I am this one? What's the relationship? And that sadhu answered very nicely in Hindi. I'll translate for you. He said, Bevkufi matra hai, stupidity. The only relationship between you, the pure consciousness, and this body, mind, this limitation is stupidity. Basically, another way of saying, we don't know, ignorance. We don't see it. But another way, a more practical way, it's more to the point. The Hridaya Granthi, the knot of the heart, it is ignorance. True. But what happens from this ignorance is, it is desire. I am a limited being and I want something in this world for my fulfillment. That already assumes I am not fulfilled. I am not Purnam. I am not fulfilled. In order to fulfill myself, I want something from the world, something from other people, other things. I want to add to myself, then I will be fulfilled. So I'm going to go deep. You have to walk with me on this. I remember when I was a kid, I used to read these Tintin comics. Some of you must have read them. Where in one of those Tintin comics, there's this crazy professor, Professor Calculus. And he's walking with a group of people and explaining some nuclear fission and their equations. And he looks back and says to the people behind him, "Are you following me?" And this one character is Captain Haddock, if you remember Captain Haddock. He is behind the professor and he says, "Yes, I'm right behind you." But you have to follow me. Here is the first very interesting idea. Consciousness, knowledge. Here, by knowledge, I do not mean pure consciousness, Atman. I just mean the knowledge we have right now. Jnana, knowledge, the knowledge which we have right now, by its very nature is sattvic. The sattva guna in the mind is sattvic. It is of the nature of prakasha. It reveals. All it means is, by knowledge we know things. That's all it means. Knowledge enables us to know things. Just like a light illumines this hall, our knowledge illumines the world for us. Just in that way, a very simple way. Knowledge illumines, and the illumination is of the nature of what we call sattva guna, sattvic. What does it illumine? It illumines vishaya, objects, things in the world, whatever we see in the world. But material nature is illumined by knowledge, vishaya. Vishaya, by its very nature, is tamasic. It's inert, it's matter, energy, it's tamasic. It's a material nature, tamasic. And then this knowledge illumines vishaya, so far no problem. But if it gives rise to desire, I want that vishaya. I want that form, beautiful form. I want that melodious sound. I want to smell that lovely fragrance and taste that wonderful taste. The five and the touch. We see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and I want. So knowledge revealing the five objects of the senses. Sattvic, tamasic, but the wanting is rajasic. It comes up in between. It's of the nature of kama. It's called kama, desire. See, just knowing, no problem. But knowing, and then sankalpa comes, kama, I want. This kama is the hridaya granthi, is the one which really ties us. In Vedanta, we keep saying, ignorance is the problem. You are Brahman, you are Atman, you are not the body, not the mind. Realize yourself as Atman. But notice, spiritual teachers across traditions, they don't go to that kind of abstruse philosophy. They say that it is desire which is the problem. And what is the relationship between desire and enlightenment, or lack of enlightenment? Here, the hridaya granthi, which the Upanishad speaks about. So this is the first idea I want to share with you. This hridaya granthi, that kama. Consciousness manifesting through knowledge, revealing a world, but being transformed into desire. That I want. And that is one of the things, the core thing which ties us down to this world. And Krishna says, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan. The first thing is that be centered in your real nature as limitless awareness. From that perspective, you see there is no possibility of any desire. What will you desire? It is all you. What do you hate and want to reject? It is all you. You alone are appearing as all the Vishaya. That's why I said this is an advanced class, because I'm already presuming we have gone through the Vedantic analysis and understanding, basic idea. Drigdrishya Vivek, the discernment of the seer and the seen, or the Panchakosha Viveka, or the five levels of the human personality, or the Avasthatraya, waking, dreaming, deep sleep. I am the consciousness to which all of these are appearing. from all that I understand. But now how to make it living in my life? Then what happens? One might say that if I don't desire anything, Shankaracharya says, Unmattasya eva prasanga in his commentary. So this guy is going to go crazy. We are happy because we see nice things, we hear nice music, we want certain things, we want to do some activities, we want to gather things which we like. All of this is a source of happiness for us. If I let go of all these sources of happiness, I'll go mad. And then Krishna says, Atmanyeva Atmana Tushta. The source of joy for the enlightened person is Atma. I love that slogan you have for Gita Jayanti, Atmavan Bhava. That's a beautiful, in a very short formula. You have something you can interpret from the jnana perspective, something you can interpret from the devotional perspective also. You take Atman as our real nature. You are centered in your real nature. I am the unlimited existence, consciousness, bliss. But if I am a devotee, my Atma is my beloved Lord, is my Ishta Devata. And so, if I'm centered in that, in both cases, my joy is within. Joy is not derived from something else outside. Where does joy come from? Our first answer is that it comes from Vishaya, from objects, from things, activities, places, people. Krishna says just the opposite. Atmani, it is in the Atman, not in objects. How do we get joy? How do we get joy? Through our activities, through our senses, through indriyas. And Krishna says, he reverses that too. He says, Atmana, not through indriya, not through eyes and ears and tongue and touch and smell. No. He says, joy comes in the Atman, through the Atman. For those of you interested in the subtle underlying Vedantic philosophy here, this is what is called Nisheda, Vishaya Indriya Ubhaya Nisheda. This is a negation of the axiomatic thing that we have. Things outside in the world are the source of my joy. Krishna negates that. Whatever joy you are getting from so-called things in the world outside, that's your own joy being reflected back from the world to you. There's that rather funny story about the dog which had a bone, and it would chew the bone. It was a dry and rough and old bone, and it would cut its own lip, and it would bleed, and it would taste its own blood and say, how tasty that bone is. And it would carefully bury that bone, and whenever it wanted joy, happiness, it would dig that bone out and chew in it and taste its own blood. We are like that foolish dog. We are tasting our own joy, our own bliss, and say it comes from the candy or the video game. Say, Swami, I've grown up, not candy or video game. We have not grown up. All of us, we have our candies and video games in the world. Kids like candies and video games, but you're also big kids. It's that dog with the bone, the same psychology is working. We use it to manifest our own internal joy, our own bliss. So Krishna says there, it's not outside. Bliss is inside, and inside means in your real nature, in the Atman. You don't even need the activities and the senses to manifest pleasure from the world outside. The body and the mind and the senses, they are meant for a spiritual purpose, not to have a big party in the world. I remember Somerset Maugham, the English novelist. He actually went to India and met Ramana Maharshi, Somerset Maugham. He knew quite a bit of Vedanta. Yeah. He says, if you continuously chase pleasure, very soon you will find nothing pleasing anymore. Because pleasure is not outside actually. You get the joy in the Atman through the Atman. Atmani eva atmana tushta stita pragyasta duchyate. One more abstruse point, difficult point, but it has to be said. What is Krishna actually recommending here? What is the practice? He is saying the enlightened person gives up all desires in the heart and is completely satisfied in the bliss of the Atman within. Atman neva atmana tushta. Then only can you say, the wisdom is firmly settled. He's answering Arjuna's first question. In samadhi, in deep absorption in the Atman or in God, how is the enlightened person? Like this. But what is the practice for us? So there are these two advanced practices. You can interpret the verse in both ways. The most advanced one is called Badha. The next one is called Nirodha. I'll explain. Badha, Nirodha. Badha is an Advaitic concept. Nirodha is a yogic, by which I mean Patanjali Yoga, Patanjali yogic concept. We'll start with Nirodha first. Good example would be movie playing on the screen up there. And then somebody tells you, well, it's a movie. Really, it's a screen. And there is no person there, there is no villain or hero or sky or earth or cars and cops and robbers. None of it. It's a screen. Now, if I say, I want to see the screen. How do I see the screen? Very easy. Wait. When we were kids, movies had intervals. You used to switch off and half time. So then you could see the screen. The movie would stop. It would go all dark. In the movie hall, you don't see the movie. You don't see anything. That's like deep sleep. Sushupti, deep sleep. But then the lights would come on. And then you would see the blank screen. So that is one way of appreciating the screen, the reality on which the movie of our life is playing, is by switching off the movie. This is again what Americans would call a no-brainer. You want to see the screen? Switch off the movie, you'll see the screen. That is called Nirodha. Yogash chitta vritti Nirodha. Plunge the mind into absolute focus, absolute concentration, not falling asleep. Absolute focus, concentration, till the last vritti on which you are focusing. Vritti means activity of the mind. That is also stilled in samadhi. The yogis call it asampragyata samadhi in Patanjali Yoga. You can also call it nirvikalpa samadhi. In samadhi, what happens? Patanjali says, tada drashtu swarupe avasthanam. You the witness, you the consciousness, you remain in your own pure nature, in your own pure state. When the world is stilled. He says, Swami, we are not stilling the world, we're just stilling your mind, even if you can do that at all. Yes, but the world is in your mind. We don't directly contact the world. Isn't it true? Through the five senses, inputs, information comes into the mind. When I'm looking at you, you look puzzled. When I look at this bottle, it's not that the bottle is coming into my eyes. Just light reflected from the bottle comes. If bottle comes into my eyes, you have to call an ambulance. It's just the light reflected from the bottle which comes to my eyes. Then through the eyes and optic nerves, that is immediately transformed. There's no more light there also. Neither bottle is there, nor light is there. Just electrical impulses racing along the optic nerves to the brain centers. And then, by some miracle, nobody knows. It's a mystery. Nobody knows how those little impulses, electrical impulses in our neurons in the brain, how do they become mind? This is the so-called hard problem of consciousness. David Chalmers, he coined the term, the hard problem of consciousness. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. There are all sorts of theories, none of which are very good. In the mind, there is not a bottle, there is not light, there is not electricity. It's thought. Vritti. So samsara comes to us in thought. The samsara is, for all of us, it is chitta vritti, movements of the mind. Notice, proof, in deep sleep, when the mind is switched off, your samsara disappears, at least temporarily. So, in the mind, when you still the mind, chitta vritti, stilled, absolutely still, calm, quiet, dark, stop. Then according to Patanjali Yoga, you remain. The screen alone remains. Movie is switched off. You're revealed to yourself as pure consciousness. Of course, you don't think there, aha, now I'm pure consciousness. If you're thinking that it's the mind again. Then when you come out of it, you recognize that, all right, that's what happened. That's who I am. This is called Nirodha. Nirodha. This is called Samadhi. So this is one meaning, the direct meaning of what Krishna said. You see yourself, the enlightened person can still all experiences and remain as pure awareness. That's a sign that your enlightenment is stabilized. One. But I introduced another term, badha. Badha means, do you really need, look at the screen right now, there. Do you really need to switch off that movie in order to see this, know that it is a screen? In order to see that it is a screen, do you have to switch off the movie? You look puzzled. Don't you know it's a screen? Yes, I know. But how do you know? You're seeing a picture there. It's because we know, even if I see a picture, even if I see a movie, whatever the movie is, I know it's the screen. And when I'm seeing the movie, at that time also, I know I am seeing the screen. If I go and touch that, so if you're seeing Jurassic Park and dinosaurs and things like that, if you go out and try to touch a dinosaur there, what will you touch? The screen. Because that's the only reality that there is there. So we know it. Even when we are all of us, even kids, when we are all watching the movie, enjoying the movie, laughing at a comedy, weeping at a tragedy, we all know it's the screen. And you don't have to switch off the movie. The audience would be really annoyed if you switched off the movie and to demonstrate it's a screen. We all know that. That is called badha. Even in the midst of life, when you are talking, walking, working, when you're seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, in the midst of the movie of life, you know that I am Satchidananda Brahma. Like Sri Ramakrishna said, with eyes closed, God, with eyes open, God. With eyes open means engaged in the world. So the meaning of samadhista, prasthita pragya, the enlightened one who is merged in samadhi, it can have two meanings. One is the yogic meaning of nirodha, another one is the advaitic meaning of badha. Here, the masters of Advaita, they caution us. They say, it's only one when one is what they call a krita upasti. It's a technical term. It means that one who has completed the course of sadhana. Purity of mind, eradicated desires, and total concentration of mind. That person, with eyes open and eyes closed all the time, sees the same reality. One existence consciousness bliss. But for the rest of us, it is highly recommended, strongly recommended, prescribed that better not stop your meditation. He said, Swami told us I can see Brahman like the movie, seeing the movie, the screen with the movie. So I don't need to meditate. I'll keep my eyes open all the time. Do whatever I please. It's all Brahman anyway. No, you're asking for trouble that way. So regular meditation, morning and evening, don't give it up. One very wise advice from a Buddhist Lama. He says, with eyes open and eyes closed, same reality. Never forget to close your eyes in meditation morning and evening. Forest and city, same reality. Never miss an opportunity to go into a retreat in the forest. Your guru and you are the same reality. Never forget to give reverence to your guru. So like this series of warnings, it is true. When you come to understand the truth, it is true. But never give up the practices. That's asking for trouble. Okay. Now, Krishna goes further. This verse is what I meant by ekatva. In our realization, in our heart of hearts, I know the truth. It's the screen. Whatever I see in the screen, the villain, the hero, the sky and the earth, it's all the one same reality. One alone appearing as many. Krishna says in the Gita, avibhaktam cha bhuteshu vibhaktam iva cha sthitam. One and undivided in all beings. I appear as if divided. One and undivided in all pictures. All characters in the movie, in tragedies and comedies and horror shows, is one and undivided, but seems to be very different. You recognize that one reality everywhere and know what is that one reality? It is you. Tat tvamasi. You are that. So that is the deepest, at our level of our knowledge, our conviction, our clarity, our understanding, and our realization. Aham brahmasmi ekatvam, oneness. When you engage with the world, next Krishna says, next verse. Dukkheshu anudvigna manaha, sukheshu vigata spriya, vitaraga bhaya krodha, stitadhi muniruchyate. As you experience the world, what happens? In the enlightened one, in miseries, in sorrow, dukkha, unperturbed mind. In sukha, when pleasant things happen, nice things happen, things go the way we would want them to go. No thirst, no hungering, no grabbing, no hankering. Spriya means thirst. Sukheshu vigata spriya, vitaraga bhayakrodha, transcending this grabbing, this hankering for the world, raga, attachment, bhaya, fear, krodha, anger. Then only the sthitadhi, the realization, your realization is stabilized. The enlightened one is stabilized. Then what is our practice? Dukkheshu anudvigna manaha. Most difficult. This is where everybody gets stuck. He says, I understand all of it, but the problem is that when problems come in the world, then I can't maintain my cool. I react. I become unhappy. It takes me time to come back. I see it, but I can't do it in life. Dukkheshu anudvigna mana, not upset. When the setup becomes difficult, we get upset. So, how not to get upset? First of all, just this word used by Krishna, Dukkheshu anudvigna mana, is enough to upset many people. That means enlightened person also has dukkha. Suffering is there even for the enlightened person. Then what is the purpose? I thought all my sufferings will go away once I become enlightened. But if suffering is there even after enlightenment, then I thought all sufferings will go away. Vedanta promises atyantika dukkha nivritti paramananda praptischa, attainment of utmost bliss and overcoming suffering. But if suffering is there even in enlightenment, it will continue. Look at the lives of the people you consider holy, spiritually advanced, avatars, incarnations, whatever you want to call them. They had ups and downs in life. They faced so many challenges. But interestingly, their reaction was very different from our reaction. So here is the beautiful insight. Bhagavan Buddha, I really love this story and I've told it a number of times. What does spirituality do actually? So this is a story, original story from the earliest Buddhist scriptures. I'm thankful to Professor Arindam Chakravarti of the University of Hawaii, who pointed this out. He told this in a lecture. He said the Buddha was once asked by one of the bhikshus, "Then I have a question." What is the question? You said to us that sorrow is sarvam dukkham. First noble truth of the Buddha, all is suffering. And what is suffering? Old age, disease, death. You know, the four sights which the Buddha saw and became Siddhartha, the prince Siddhartha became the Buddha. Four sights: old man, sick person, dead person, and then he saw a monk. So these three are the symbols, the placeholders for suffering. Old age is suffering. One doctor said, Swami, nowadays with modern technology and modern medical science, we can ensure you will live long, but we cannot ensure you will live well. So old age is suffering, jara. Then disease is suffering. And then death is suffering. At least the fear of death and unpleasantness associated with it, it's suffering. And you said there is a way to go beyond sorrow. You, Bhagavan Buddha, you taught us there's a way to go beyond sorrow. You have realized that way. You have gone beyond sorrow. We are also following your teachings. There's a Buddhist monk. We are also following your teachings. But we are growing old. We are also getting disease. Some of us have died. You are also growing old. You are also getting disease. And probably, unfortunately, in some time in the near future, you will die. Then how have you overcome sorrow? Sorrow is old age, disease, death. You said you have overcome sorrow and you're teaching us how to overcome sorrow. But you have not overcome sorrow. You are getting old, you're getting disease, you're going to die. We are also getting old, disease, and die. Inevitable. Then how has spirituality helped you to overcome sorrow? And the Bhagavan Buddha's answer is very precise, as always, and it's something that spiritual seekers in whatever tradition, we need to take note of. What can spirituality do? He says, sorrow is the nature of a person hit by two arrows. One arrow, second arrow. First arrow is what the world throws at you. Troubles, physical troubles, mental troubles, financial troubles, dukkha, suffering. The second arrow is how we react to it. How we react to the first arrow. Old age, disease, death, financial troubles, anxieties, unpleasantness, pain, physical and mental, emotional, it will come in life. The world will throw it at you. But how we react to it, that actually accounts for most of our suffering. Any doctor knows this. Doctors will tell you that serious disease, probably terminal, and the patient faces it with dignity and calmness and serenity. Small problem, patient is broken down and hysterical and creating a huge chaos, which means it's not really the problem outside which is causing our suffering. It's our reaction to the problem which is causing suffering. Serious problem, very serene and calm. So there's really no suffering inside. I'll tell you in Hindi, one sadhu beautifully put it. We think, samsar ke karan mera man ashant hai. We think because of samsara, my mind is restless, has no peace, ashant, no peace. I have no peace because of all the troubles in samsara. He says, wrong. Ashant man ke karan samsar hai. Because our mind is restless, we have samsara. And the proof of it is same samsara. Two different people react to it in two very different ways. Why? Different people, different minds. Same samsara. Dukkheshu anudvignamana. The Buddha said, what I teach you, the Buddhist teachings, that will enable you to overcome the suffering by the second arrow. Your reaction to the first arrow will be completely different and your suffering will be gone. About the first arrow, old age, disease, even physical death, the Buddha said, I cannot do anything about that. Nobody can. With modern science, technology and all of that, we can manage it to some extent. That's it. But those are inevitable, a part of the changing universe. Dukkheshu anudvignamana. What is dukkha? Very quickly, let me run through these points. Very interesting. Dukkha itself, if you look at it, 3 levels of understanding. First level is how we understand dukkha, suffering. In all our Hindu spiritual traditions, Vedanta also, we all talk about adhyatmika, adhibhautika, adhidaivika. A lot of rituals are performed in the temple to take care of these dukkhas. These are the causes which cause suffering to us. Adhibhautika, other living beings, it could be ancient scriptures would talk about tiger and lion and all of that. But today it might be mosquito or an annoying neighbor or somebody like that, or your roommate. That is an annoying living being or troublesome other living beings. They cause trouble to me. That's one cause of suffering. Another cause of suffering, adhidaivika, natural cause. It's too hot, too cold, or COVID, or earthquake, or something like that. Some kind of force of nature. I remember I was in Boston when the pandemic started. The Middle Eastern guy was driving a cab. I was sitting there, and at that time, they had said it's a virus. And this is a heavy Middle Eastern accent. He was telling me that is Mother Nature's power. Tiny little thing. It can shake the whole world. One little virus. So, adi bhautika dukkha. It can devastate the world. And then, adhyatmika. Something that comes from my own body, physical sickness or mental illness. That can cause great pain. So these are the 3 causes of pain. This is dukkha. But let's look deeper. Let's look deeper. This is not just the causes of dukkha. If you look deeper, all of these causes of dukkha, finally to give me dukkha, to make me suffer, they have to come to my mind. So dukkha is chitta vritti. Adhyatmik, adhibhautik, adhidaivik, correct. But to really make me suffer, it has to be chitta vritti. That dukkhakara vritti. In Sanskrit, it means mind formation in the form of suffering. This is unpleasant. This is horrible. This is terrible. That is the second deeper understanding of dukkha. Even deeper, third level understanding of dukkha. Dukkha abhimana. Identification with the dukkha. Yes, there is a problem outside. Yes, in the mind also there is a reaction. It's so awful. But then, I am in suffering. Aham dukkhi. That's the third level of understanding. Dukkha abhimana means here is this reaction in the mind, and then I go forward and own it. I am in suffering. This is awful, and I am in awful suffering. So 3 levels of dukkha. Why these 3 levels are important? As that Buddhist monk had asked Bhagavan Buddha, that you are in the same samsara. Your body is also getting old. Your body is also getting disease. And soon one day your body will pass away. Old age, disease and death are there for you. Yet in the middle of this, you are free from dukkha. How? So it's not that old age by itself is dukkha. Disease by itself is dukkha. No. Death by itself is dukkha. No. There's a very beautiful story about Sri Ramakrishna who passed away from throat cancer. One doctor told me it's one of the nastiest forms of cancer. Because when you're suffering, when somebody is suffering from it, you can't swallow and the saliva keeps coming out of the mouth. You have to keep wiping. One can't eat. So many problems and painful all the time. So he was wasting away from throat cancer. One of his disciples, young man, Hari, he came and asked, "Sir, how are you today?" And Sri Ramakrishna replied weakly, "I am in pain, it hurts, and I can't eat." And that young man, for some reason, he said, "But sir, I see you are in great bliss. You are in great joy." Now, a typical cancer patient would be upset with that kind of a remark. "I'm suffering and you are saying I'm in great joy." Sri Ramakrishna was, on the contrary, delighted, and he said, "That rascal has found me out." That you have understood the truth. In Bengali, he said, "Oh, shala dhore niyeche." The rascal has found me out. How is it possible? Is he actually not suffering? Yes. Adhyatmika suffering is there. Physical suffering is there. Dukkhakara vritti is not there. That this is pain. Yes, mind also recognizes. That's why he was able to say, "I can't eat. It hurts." The mind is saying that. But dukkha abhimana is not there. I am the witness in which this dukkha arises. There's something called vastu drishti. Change your understanding of that dukkha. Change your understanding of that dukkha. 3 levels again, I will tell you. These are the skills which we can apply straight away. These are advanced practices, but these are the skills. 3 levels of understanding of dukkha. Yes. Highest, little lower, and 1 step lower. 3 levels. Dukkha. What is dukkha? The pain which you feel, the anxiety which I feel, the unhappiness, the sorrow which I feel. Bring your Advaitic understanding to bear upon it. What is that Advaitic understanding? I am Chidananda Rupa Shivoham. One consciousness appearing in all this way. One screen appearing as a tragedy, comedy, horror movie, science fiction movie. One screen. So, I am Brahman. And I appear. This dukkha is nothing other than Brahman. What is dukkha? Brahman itself. Satchidananda itself. That is dukkha. Yes, one might say that's too high. All right, 1 step lower. It is Brahma Vivarta. It is an appearance of Brahman. It's not the screen. It's a name and a sound and an image and a light playing on the screen. It is a name and form appearing on you, the pure consciousness. Just as the screen is not touched by the movie, a great explosion doesn't burn up the screen. A great deluge doesn't make the screen wet. The tragedy, which you keep, the whole audience goes into tears. The tragedy is played on the movie again and on the screen again and again. Morning show, afternoon show, evening show, night show. Screen is fine. Not traumatized by the movie. Why? Because it is a movie. It is name and form. It's an appearance. Reality and appearance can coexist. Whatever the appearance, reality is not touched by it. Shankaracharya says powerfully, all the water in a mirage cannot wet 1 grain of sand in the desert. Entire mirage full of water, it cannot wet 1 grain of sand in the desert. Dukkheshu anudvignamanaha. Why? Because it's an appearance. I am consciousness. In me, the mind is appearing. I am an ocean of consciousness. In me, the mind is appearing. In the mind, one kind of wave is a dukkha wave, it has come up. All right. As the Buddhists say, let it come, let it stay, let it go. I'm fine. Water is fine with whatever way it appears. I'm just water. Screen is fine with whatever movie you play. I am the screen. I am consciousness. So, what is dukkha? Brahma vivarta. Those who understand these, again, powerful terms. Within one term, vivarta, the whole of Advaita is fixed there. So, it is an appearance of Brahman. Okay, one step lower. What is dukkha? When it's in the mind, and the mind is a transformation of nature, prakriti, sattva, rajas, tamas. It keeps transforming, sometimes sattvic, happy, rajasic, painful, tamasic, dull, inert. It's a transformation, prakriti parinama. Transformation of prakriti, of nature. I am the witness of nature. So 3 powerful ways of looking at dukkha I have given. What are the 3 powerful ways? Dukkha is nothing but a transformation of nature. Mind is sattvic, rajasic, tamasic sometimes. And we see it. Sometimes sattvic, sometimes rajasic, sometimes tamasic. And I am the same one who experiences sattvic mind. I want to meditate, I want to study, I want to go to a Gita lecture, sattvic mind. I am the witness, same mind, restless. Where are the car keys? I'm getting late for the lecture, rajasic mind. And I am the same witness of the same mind. What a boring lecture, falling asleep. I am the same. Sattvic, rajasic, tamasic mind, prakriti parinama. Dukkha is rajasic, prakriti parinama. One way. A higher, more powerful, more direct, little advanced way. Dukkha is Brahma vivarta, is an appearance of Brahman, screen appearing as a movie. Consciousness appearing as dukkha. And even most powerful and direct, it is nothing other than Brahma, Brahma Swarupa. Dukkha itself is Brahman. This is how radical Advaita can be. And the third one, and this is another way of looking at dukkha. So the jnana way, this is the jnana way of looking at dukkha. But a bhakta can also look at dukkha. Bhakta can also look at dukkha. Dukkha is not suffering. Dukkha is the anugraha, the grace of Ishvara. By the grace of Ishvara, how can suffering be the grace of Ishvara? As you go to the temple, offerings are made and fruits are brought out, offered fruits. I take it as prasada. I don't take it as assortment of fruits which I get from the supermarket. I have a liking and disliking. I like mangoes, I don't like pears, I don't like this fruit, I like that fruit. What will you take? I will select these ones and leave out the other ones. But if it comes to me as prasada, whether I like it or not, I have a prasada buddhi on it. It has been offered to the Lord and it's coming as prasada from the Lord. Whatever it is, if it's a kind of fruit I like, great. If it's not a kind of fruit I don't like, great. It's prasada for me. Similarly, dukkha and sukha comes as prasada from the Lord. How is sukha and dukkha prasada? When I convert my activities into karma yoga, whatever I'm doing in the temple, whatever I'm doing in the office, at family, all of this is a worship of the Lord. Then karma becomes karma yoga. Karma becomes puja. Whatever you do in puja and offer in puja, that becomes prasada. So in my karma is puja, the karma phala, the result, literally the fruits of karma, sukha and dukkha, are prasada for me. That's the devotees, the bhaktas' angle on this. Let problems come. My problem is not with the sufferings given by the world. My only thing is, can I keep my mind on God? Can I keep my heart on God? Dukkeshu anudvignamana, sukheshu vigataspriya. One more point, then I will conclude. Third verse. In action, Krishna says, all right, so in reality, I am pure consciousness. Ekatvam, one consciousness, aham brahmasmi. Second, in the midst of sufferings and problems in the world, I maintain evenness of mind. In dukkha, no disturbance. Dukkeshu anudvignamana, sukheshu vigataspriya. Evenness of mind in sukha and dukkha. In mind is even, not thrown into waves. Third, in action, in the midst of the world. Krishna now says, third verse, says, Yas sarvatra anabhisneya tat prapya shubha shubham nabhinandanti nadveshti tasya prajna pratisthita. In the midst of actions, when good things, nice things, you want it, it happens. And when things which don't go your way, those things also happen. You are not excited and elated when things go my way. We are not depressed or unhappy or thrown into anger when things do not go our way. Na abhinandanti na dveshti. When Shubha and Ashubha, what is auspicious and what is inauspicious, what is welcome and what is not welcome, they keep coming our way, we remain detached. We can remain detached. So this asangatvam in matters of action, this is what he is saying. One sadhu put it very nicely. Dogs, dog waves its tail. If a dog likes somebody, it will come and wave its tail. Doesn't like somebody, growl. So, abhinandati dveshti. कुत्ता किसके लिए पूंछ हिलाता है? For whom does the dog wag its tail? I'll translate into English what he said in Hindi. He said, किसके लिए? When the mind is the dog. For whom does the dog, the mind, wag its tail? Sadhu के लिए, by seeing a monk. Pandit के लिए, by seeing a scholar or something. Seth ji के लिए, for seeing a rich person. Or husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend. For whom does the mind, my mind, for whom does the mind wag its tail? That shows what the mind wants. What does the mind like? So they say Mahatva Buddhi. Where is my sense of importance? That will show this, whether the realization is stable or not. If it is relationship, things go well or badly in relationships and can throw my mind into waves, then the mind is wagging its tail for the relationship, the partner, or money, or property, or career success. Or is it spirituality? Pratishtha means established. Where is your prajna, your understanding established? We know many things, but where has it taken up its home? Where is it at this moment? Where is it running to by itself? Shubha, Shubha, when auspicious and inauspicious things come. But Shubha and Ashubha, it's a big topic. What is Shubha? Shubha means auspicious, good, pleasant. Ashubha, inauspicious, bad, unpleasant. But what is good and what is auspicious, what is inauspicious and unpleasant, it differs from person to person. This is in Vedanta, we talk about 4 levels of human beings. Pamara, the instinctive person. Natural, almost animal-like. I want pleasure. I want success. Life must be a party for me. Many people are like that. That is Pamara, instinctive, uncultured, literally. Then, little better than that, Vishayi, a worldly person. Dharmika Vishayi, worldly person. Then Sadhaka, a spiritual practitioner. And then Siddha, person who's enlightened. What does the Pamara want? Pleasure and wealth. Kama and Artha. Pamara means at this, you don't have to teach such a person. That person, we are born with those instincts. And just I want to satisfy my instincts. But those are natural instincts. Those are biological instincts, psychological instincts. If I pursue that without respect for anything else, then what is Shubha for me? Not Gita class. For such a person, Gita class will be Ashubha. What a boring waste of time. Awful. I have a free evening, Saturday. You want me to go to a terrible lecture? Ashubha. What is Shubha? I'll go and party. Go out to town and have a good time. That is Shubha. And this is Ashubha for a Pamara. For a Sadhaka, this is Shubha. That is Ashubha. I remember, I have not shared this, as a kid, when I made that transition, I used to get a little bit of pocket money from my parents. In those days, I was a bookworm, and those Superman, Batman comics used to come from USA. They were expensive because of the exchange rate. At that time, dollar was 5 rupees, I think. Now it's 80. So I would go to buy Superman, Batman comics. One day, I felt, why waste this money on this? I will go to the local Ramakrishna mission and buy a book from the bookshop. See, the transition from Shubha and Ashubha, my whole idea of Shubha and Ashubha went into a completely 180 degrees opposite. So sadhaka considers this to be Shubha and that to be Ashubha. But what about the Vishayi, the one in between? The Vishayi, Dharmika person understands this to be Shubha, but is pulled towards the Ashubha. Is pulled like this. And remember, these are not cut and dried categories, it's a spectrum. In this spectrum, some are Pamara, some are Vishayi, and there's a broad spectrum. Some are sadhakas. We are all sadhakas, but sadhaka also is a spectrum. Siddha is gone, Shubha Shubha Parityagi, has gone beyond Shubha and Ashubha. The Siddha, the enlightened one. So 4 categories. Pamara, Shubha means material pleasure and sense pleasure. Ashubha means anything else, boring. Then the sadhaka, Shubha means spiritual. Moral, ethical, spiritual life is Shubha. Ashubha means all that diverts me away from this. Vishayi understands the Shubha, wants the Ashubha, pulled. And Siddha, the enlightened one, beyond Shubha and Ashubha. Krishna says, Shubha Shubha Parityagi. Beautiful example. How can one give up Shubha and Ashubha? It's because of this. A classic Vedantic example. Snake rope, we all know. You will be thinking, at what point will you bring out the snake rope? So the classic example, the full example is like this. There was a rope, but people did not know it was a rope. Some people thought as they were passing it, they thought it was a snake. Some people thought, no, it's not a snake. It's a garland discarded from the temple. Temple garland, somebody has thrown it up, it's there. Somebody thought it's a garland, Shubha. Temple garland, Shubha. Somebody thought it's a snake, Ashubha. Both are in delusion. The enlightened one knows it's a rope, not Shubha, not Ashubha. The enlightened one knows it is Brahman, one existence consciousness place. What we consider to be Shubha, what we consider to be Ashubha, both are appearances of one underlying reality. And the one who sees this, Shubha Shubha Parityagi. But that comes from the vision of Brahman. Once there was a sadhu who came to Dakshineshwar, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was there. So this Hriday, the nephew of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, that sadhu who looks like a crazy person, everybody thought he's mad. He's an enlightened person. So this his nephew thought, I must get some advice. So he ran after that sadhu. And that sadhu was throwing stones to scare him off. But he ran further and he caught hold of that crazy sadhu and said, give me some advice. The temple is on the bank of the Ganga. So he said, when the water of the Ganga and the water of the drain are same to you, then you have attained enlightenment. Shubha, Ashubha. But underlying both, there is one reality, and that is what you are, that one existence consciousness bliss. And all of this requires a certain practice. Krishna mentions it. It's a simple practice, not glamorous, not yogic, not advaitic. In the next verse, Krishna says, Yada sangharate chayam kurmangani va bharata indriyani indriyarthebhya tasya prajna pratisthita. Sense control. Our senses are autonomous. They have a certain amount of independence and they have a lot of energy, like teja. And they are rushing out to their objects. Eyes want to see, ears want to hear, fingers want to touch, nose wants to smell, the tongue wants to taste. I must retain control over it. The ancient idea in Kathopanishad. If you want to become enlightened, Yama tells Nachiketa, think of this body-mind as a chariot. And you are the Atman. And in the chariot, there are 5 horses pulling the chariot along. And these horses must be trained. The mind is the reins by which the horses are controlled. The buddhi, the intellect, which is understanding all of this, hopefully, that is the charioteer, the driver. You are the witness consciousness, the passenger. Now, first thing is the horses must be well trained. They must be responsive to the commands. These well-trained horses, Krishna says, like a tortoise can withdraw its limbs. You must have the ability of withdrawing the senses. You can send the senses forth to action in the world. You can withdraw the senses forth. The world should not cling to you. The senses should not cling to the world. That's what happens to us when we say, I understand. Somebody says something nasty to me. I forget I am Brahman. I forget he is Brahman and give him a nice one back. So these practices are necessary for establishing wisdom, sthita prajna. Again, I'm sharing things which are sort of among the monks in the Himalayas. They give 5 reasons why these advanced practices are necessary. 5 reasons. Ultimate reason is 2. Dukkha nivritti, ananda prapti. Our sorrows will actually cease and you will get bliss for that reason. And 3 preliminary reasons they give. One is called jnana raksha. I have understood all this, but I have to nurture it and protect it. Sri Ramakrishna would say, when the sapling is new, a fence is put around it. Otherwise, cows and goats will come and eat it. So a fence is put around it. Fence is spiritual practice. That fence, that's why we need to have jnana raksha, to protect this knowledge. Isha Upanishad says, tena tyaktena bhunjita. By renunciation, protect this knowledge that Ishavasyam idam sarvam. One consciousness pervades this entire universe. And you are that consciousness. But you protect it by renunciation, by spiritual practice. Jnana raksha, first reason. Second reason is tapasya. Austere spiritual lifestyle is required. It strengthens us in controlling the senses. See, this thing that I understand everything, but somebody says something and I lash out at that person, unable to control. The senses are not under control. There's a physical pain. I burst out, I scream and shout. Oh, I understand. I am the witness of the body, I am the witness of the pain also. But at that moment, I couldn't control. Afterwards, I may be able to bring it under control. I've seen it many times in advanced spiritual seekers also. How is it that I can control at that moment also? That is, a form of austerity is required, the spiritual practice. What are the practices? I've told, I will repeat again. Third reason is, they call it avisamvada. Visamvada means confusion. I have understood everything, but next lecture I listen to, I get confused. I understood Vedanta, but then I went to this other lecture. And then everything became. Schopenhauer said, the sign of a weak mind is like a pillow which retains the impression of the last bottom which sat on it. So it's like the last book you have read, or the last lecture you have read, that becomes great. No. Avisamvada. One sadhu put it very beautifully in Hindi, the Uttarakhand sadhu say, Dhyan laga ke dekh lo vastu kaisa hai. Once you sit quietly in the morning and see, what am I? This one unlimited awareness shining forth. And then go forth. Nobody can confuse you. One sadhu I heard again in Hindi, he would say, see, what happens in confusion is, person knows about milk. Never seen milk or drunk milk, but knows about milk. When somebody tells him, you know about milk? Yeah, I know it's white. And then the other person says, yeah, you are not wrong. It is white, but only when it comes from white cows. When it comes from red cows, it is red, and from black cows, it is black. Now this person thinks, but I had read that milk is white, but what he says is logical. So perhaps what I read was incomplete. More information I've got now. Or all right, so I have this multicolored milks. No. If you have seen what milk is and you know for sure, doesn't matter what logic anybody else gives. A red cow, red milk, sounds logical. White cow, black milk. One little kid, it's a true story. Children also have interviews for kindergarten and all. Somebody said more a test for the parents than for the children. Tension is for the parents, not for the kids. So one little kid was interviewed for a primary school. And the school psychologist, looked at the little boy and said, how is it that a white cow, the red cow eating green grass gives white milk? And the kid immediately, smartly replied, why are you asking me? Ask the cow. I hope he was selected. So, avisamvada, you will not be confused by whatever logic anybody gives, because you know, you see it all the time. I'll tell you one little thing. The difference between an enlightened person and a person who is well studied, well versed in Vedanta. If you ask a question, the scholar who is not yet enlightened, but knows the philosophy very well, that scholar will think of different books, consult this and that, based on the information he or she has got, will give you a reply. The enlightened one will not do that. The enlightened one will simply look at the reality, which that enlightened one is very clear for that person, and answer from there. And that has a separate power of its own. Because it speaks to the reality within us also. It's avisamvada. And this will lead to dukkha nivritti ananda prapti. So 5 reasons why these advanced practices are necessary. 1, for jnana raksha, protecting this knowledge, which we have already got, which we are asking how to make it practical. Spiritual practice necessary. 2nd, to be able to retain control of this body-mind so that it reacts according to my knowledge, not by its previous habit. 3rd, no confusion henceforth. That's why spiritual practice is necessary. Once in a while, as that sadhu said, Dekh leo vastu kaisi hai. Take a look. And then this will lead to dukkha nivritti ananda prapti. You will get the result of it in day-to-day living. So summing up again, takeaway from this whole talk is 1, in the level of Atman Bodha, level of consciousness, ekatvam. I am one reality appearing as many. 2, at the level of the mind, thoughts, emotions, samatvam, evenness. At the level of actions, day-to-day activities in the world, asangatvam, detachment. And remember, all of it is powered by preparatory foundation, indriya nigraha, control of the body-mind. This is the takeaway from today. Thank you so much. Thank you. Namaskar.